Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Livingston, and I am the Bitcoin Wizard. Welcome to America, kids, the land of the free, where your freedom expires every 2 weeks with your paycheck. You all wake up in a rented apartment with beige walls, a carbon monoxide detector that hasn't worked since the Obama administration, and a landlord who thinks that replacing light bulbs is capital improvements. Your phone buzzes with a notification from Wells Fargo reminding you that you spent $23.87 at Starbucks, which is wild because you thought that you were just buying coffee, not a fractional equity stake in the collapse of Western civilization. You drive to work in a 2013 Nissan Altima that smells like expired Red Bull. The check engine light has been on for so long, it's basically a personality trait. You're financing the car, of course, not because you wanted to, but because you could not afford not to. That's the American dream today. You don't own anything, but you owe everything. You then get to your job, a fluorescent gulag where they celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month by giving you a coupon for a smoothie. And then your boss, a man who calls himself a thought leader, just spent $40,000 on a team building seminar about synergy, but you haven't had a raise since 2019. The HR director wants you to fill out a workplace job survey, and then you click strongly disagree on every question, and then the survey crashes. You then spend your lunch break scrolling Zillow, pretending that you will ever own a home, watching prices rise faster than your blood pressure. The median home is now $450,000, which means that you'll need 38 years of wage slavery and divine intervention to afford the down payment. But hey, your real estate agent says you just have to manifest it. So you just manifest a nervous breakdown. By 6 p.m., you're in traffic watching the gas prices climb past $5 while a digital billboard screams about buy now, pay later dentistry. You then get home, you open up your fridge, it's empty except for a jar of salsa and 3-string cheeses and your hopes and dreams. So what do? You order Chipotle for $27.13. The delivery guy hands it to you like he's passing a torch in the Hunger Games, and then you open TikTok. You see all these influencers, these Dave Ramsey acolytes talking about financial literacy while selling you crypto scams and protein powder. You see the government sending billions of dollars overseas while your city can't afford to fix a pothole or a public school. You see millionaires posting yacht photos with captions like "grind never stops" while you are lying on your IKEA mattress wondering if grind is code for slow spiritual erosion. And somewhere in the chaos, after the third reheated dinner, the fourth overdraft fee, and the fifth let's circle back email, you realize something. The entire system is engineered to make you tired, broke, complacent, distracted, and dependent. They don't need to jail you anymore. The prison is economic, the bars are inflation, and the warden is your debt. And then in the middle of this fluorescent dystopian hellhole, you hear a whisper, not from your boss, not from CNBC, and not from the Federal Reserve, but from the void itself, and it says, buy Bitcoin. You laugh at first, then you look at your paycheck, and then you look at your rent, and then you look at Jerome Powell, smiling like a substitute teacher on lithium, and then suddenly it all clicks. You realize that Bitcoin isn't this get-rich scheme. It is an escape the plantation scheme. Because the system that you're living in is not broken. It was built this way. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and you can spend your entire life paying interest on your own enslavement, or you can opt out, stack sats, and finally start living in a world that runs on proof and not permission. Welcome to the show. This is the top 5 ways that Bitcoin improves your life. And yes, it's about to get worse before it gets funny. Before we get started though, a very special thanks to Horizon for sponsoring this video. These guys let you tap your home equity so you can take it and buy Bitcoin. Why would you have the capital trapped in the rotting drywall of your home when it could be buying digital immortality? No debt or term limits. The coin is fully yours to custody however you want with no risk of forced liquidation. I'll talk more about them at the end of the video, link in the description below. Do you remember when you used to care about interest rates? You'd sit there like a trained dog watching CNBC while some guy in a $3,000 suit explained why 4.8% was historic. Historic, yeah, like the fall of Rome. You'd listen to analysts say, this is a great time to lock in your yield, while the government was printing $2 trillion in stimulus and giving you a $600 check and a pat on your head. Every single normie on LinkedIn was talking about the risk-free rate like it was the 10 commandments. The 10-year treasury is yielding 4.6%. They would whisper reverently, as if that number meant anything in a system where the currency itself is decaying faster than all of our collective mental health. Let me explain the risk-free rate to you. It is the return that you get for believing in the lie. It is a participation trophy for trusting the same people who lit the dollar on fire and told you that it was a feature. It was the Fed saying, we're sorry for destroying your purchasing power. Here is a lollipop. You used to actually care about this stuff. Do you remember those days when you would read blogs about yield curves and watch Powell's face during the press conferences like it was the Super Bowl? You'd analyze the CPI report while eating cereal that you couldn't afford. You'd debate whether inflation was transitory while your rent was going parabolic. You thought that you were informed, but you were actually hypnotized because the entire fiat system is a theater production. It is a puppet show with your retirement account as collateral. The Fed just pretends to control inflation. The Treasury pretends to manage debt. The politicians pretend to understand economics, and you pretend that your savings account matters. But then you buy Bitcoin and you suddenly see through the scam. You realize that interest is the government paying you in time that hasn't been printed yet. You realize that compounding doesn't work when the denominator is infinite. You realize that fiat interest is a placebo for people who can't handle math. And when that light bulb goes off in your head, it's not just financial, it is spiritual. You stop kneeling at the altar of the Federal Reserve and the legacy system. You stop refreshing your 401k every single day like a trained hamster. You stop waiting for permission to retire because now you own something that cannot be diluted, debased, or adjusted by a committee of insane bureaucrats who have never created anything of value in their entire lives. Once you hold Bitcoin, you don't check the Fed calendar anymore because you are the Fed. You have become sovereign. You've graduated from the religion of debt and entered the church of hard money. The normies are still on their knees waiting for the next Powell pivot. Have you been paying attention? And you are free. And that brings us to the number 5 way that Bitcoin improves your life. After you buy Bitcoin, something happens to your brain. It's very subtle at first. You stop saying things like, the economy is doing well, and start laughing hysterically every time someone mentions consumer confidence. You develop a radar for delusion. You can smell fiat across the room. You can tell when someone still believes the stock market represents productivity and not a hostage situation engineered by the Federal Reserve. You go to Target and you watch a wine mom drop $187 on throw pillows and pumpkin spice candles while paying 22% APR on her credit card. You stare at her like a wildlife biologist observing the extinction of a species. You overhear some guy buying Funko Pops bragging about his points-back rewards card. You realize that he's celebrating a 1% rebate on 10% inflation. It's like applauding the Titanic for having lifeboats. You scroll your Instagram and you see the people that you went to high school with flexing their generational wealth in NFTs of cartoon apes, digital assets backed by the Federal Reserve's cocaine binge. You realize that we are living in an asylum where the inmates trade JPEGs for mortgages. Every conversation that you have with your friends and family becomes a test of faith. Someone says, I'm saving for my kid's college fund, and you want to say why. By 2035, college will cost $1 million, and your kid will be a cybernetic bartender serving cocktails to AI hedge funds. You start seeing inflation everywhere in your groceries, your rent, your health insurance premium that somehow costs more than a car payment. You notice the size of cereal boxes shrinking like the American middle class. Fiat insanity is psychological, and you start to normalize it. It trains you to normalize abuse because you work 50 hours a week for money that buys less every single month and everybody calls it stability, and the entire system will not stop gaslighting you. You pay tax on money that you have already lost to inflation and Ukraine, and Fox News calls that patriotism. You get excited about 0% financing on a car that you cannot afford and call it financial literacy. And Bitcoin rewires your brain. It pulls the mask off. It shows you that the clown makeup is tattooed on our entire civilization. So you become impossible to gaslight. You see through the inflation targeting GDP growth, the supply chain issues. You see the truth. It becomes illuminated that we are living in a Ponzi scheme with a flag. And when that revelation hits, you just laugh hysterically, but not because it's funny, kids, but because laughter is the only sound that you can make when you have seen the end credits for the fiat world and you're still alive for the post-credit scene. That is your sixth sense. It is called the word clarity. The world didn't get crazier, my dearest little goblins. You just stopped pretending that it was sane. This is the turning point in the sermon where the tone shifts from despair to transcendence. Before Bitcoin, you were in a status trap, a psychological Ponzi scheme where everyone's pretending to be richer, happier, and more fulfilled than they are, but they were financed by Klarna and antidepressants. You thought that you were playing the game, but the game was playing you. You worked overtime to afford the brown leather seats in your BMW so the people at red lights could mistake you for somebody who doesn't hate their life. You bought shoes that you couldn't pronounce, clothes that you couldn't afford, and a house that you didn't own just to impress people who secretly hope that you would fail. Fiat society runs on just flexing debt. Nobody is free, they're just well-financed. The gym bro with his Rolex, 19% APR. The Instagram boss babe leasing everything from her lashes to her lifestyle. The corporate manager posting "so grateful for my team" is dying inside and 2 missed paychecks away from selling plasma to feed their kids. And then Bitcoin enters your life like divine comedy. You suddenly realize that all of these stupid status games are for people who don't own their time. The moments that you hold Bitcoin in self-custody, your self-worth disconnects from other people's approval. You stop peacocking. You stop pretending. You stop explaining. You become the most dangerous thing in the world, a calm man who doesn't need permission. You stop chasing brands and you start building conviction. You stop comparing your net worth to someone's Instagram highlight reel and start measuring your time in blocks. When you hold Bitcoin, you don't care about designer labels because you literally own a piece of monetary eternity. You're not buying status symbols, you're buying freedom. You're not flexing wealth, you're preserving time. And the irony is, once you stop trying to look successful, you actually start to become successful because your energy starts to shift. You're no longer feeding the beast of consumer anxiety. You are compounding sovereignty. The fiat world wants you on the treadmill forever, chasing likes, chasing promotions, chasing credit scores, chasing the illusion of control. But Bitcoin removes the treadmill entirely. And suddenly, you're not competing, you're creating. You're not performing, you are preserving. You're not begging for validation, you're radiating independence. Real freedom isn't about quitting your job and moving to Vietnam. It's about walking into a room knowing that nobody owns you. Not your boss, not your bank, not your government, and not your creditors. You become totally status proof. Because when you hold the hardest money on earth, the opinions of soft men stop mattering. Bitcoin actually helps you age in reverse. Before Bitcoin, you were slowly dying in 1080p, pale, bloated, chronically online. Your posture looked like a question mark and your soul felt like a W-2. Every morning you'd wake up, check your checking account, feel your testosterone drop 10 points. You'd scroll through a timeline of ads telling you to invest in your future while your 401k was investing in weapons contractors and mutual fund managers who think that yield farming is gardening. Your diet was coffee, despair, and whatever Postmates driver brought to your door like a war ration. You aged in dog years. You could feel the cortisol burning through your veins like the Fed printing through a fiscal quarter. And then you buy Bitcoin, something in your DNA just clicks. The moments that your seed phrase hits your cold wallet, your mitochondria start doing push-ups. You start walking differently. Your spine straightens like a market chart breaking resistance. You You get sun for the first time since 2014. You start eating steak and eggs. You started lifting not for aesthetics, but because you understand proof of work on a molecular level. Fiat life made you soft because it rewarded compliance. Bitcoin life makes you hard because it rewards discipline. Your hairline starts creeping forward out of sheer respect. Your jawline sharpens until it could cut through CPI data. Your eyes start to glow with that faint orange hue, the look of someone who no longer checks the NASDAQ for permission to exist. You stop drinking to forget and you start fasting to focus. You trade your antidepressants in your weed gummies for sovereignty. Even your stress changes flavor. It's not the anxious panic of bills and inflation. It's the electric thrill of building something that cannot be censored or counterfeited. Fiat ages you by stealing your time, and Bitcoin reverses it by giving you your time back. That's why Bitcoiners look younger, kids. It's not a meme, it's physics. When you're no longer trapped in a system of perpetual theft and misery, your cells stop living in fight or flight. You sleep like a medieval king with a multi-sig. The government can't print more of you, so start acting accordingly, kids. And Bitcoin doesn't just make you in reverse, it makes you remember who you were before the world lied to you. There comes a moment in every Bitcoiner's life, right after the memes, right after the price action, right after the dopamine fades, when you realize that this is not about money. This is about truth itself. Fiat isn't just inflationary, it is dishonest. It's moral counterfeiting. It's the state saying that we can lie to you in numbers and call it policy. It's the quiet theft of your future disguised as monetary policy, public good, and transitory stability. Fiat is the Tower of Babel built with Microsoft Excel. Every number a new language, every promise a new confusion, and nobody knows what anything is worth anymore because value itself has been politicized. And Bitcoin grabs you and brings you to the return of objective reality. Every block is proof, every sat is scripture, every transaction is a confession written in code. Here I am, here's what's real, here's what can't be faked. You finally understand why people feel hollow, why the world feels cheap, because everything we touch has been diluted by lies, because the news is propaganda, the schools are indoctrination, the markets are manipulation, and money is fraud. And then out of nowhere comes this immaculate, self-verifying, incorruptible protocol, a truth machine that doesn't even ask for your faith, it demands your verification. Bit isn't an investment in the traditional sense, my dearest little children. It is literally an exorcism. How do I know that? Because it drives out the demons of debt, the parasites of policy, and the moral rot of counterfeit trust. When you hold Bitcoin, you don't just stop lying to others, you stop lying to yourself. You stop saying, I'll save next year. You stop saying, the government will fix it. You stop saying everything's fine, because you know deep down in that place fiat fear used to live that this is the first honest thing humanity has ever built in over 100 years. And that truth doesn't just stay on your personal balance sheet, okay? It starts to reprogram your entire soul. You start eating real food, you start reading real books, you start talking to real people, and you start realizing that God doesn't need Wall Street, he just needed proof of work. Because that's what this whole thing is. Bitcoin is a sacred audit of reality itself. Fiat told you that comfort was meaning, but Bitcoin reminds you that meaning comes from struggle. Fiat tells you that wealth is numbers, but Bitcoin reminds you that wealth is time. And Fiat told you to trust the system, but Bitcoin says to trust the math. When you understand that, you stop living in fear entirely. You stop checking the prices. You stop chasing approval. You stop outsourcing responsibility for your own life, because truth, real truth, is the ultimate luxury, and Bitcoin is how you buy it. That's the final gift, not money, not status, not even freedom. Truth. Bitcoin is truth incarnate in code. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Once you've lived it, you cannot go back. Welcome home. My name is Adam Livingston. I am the Bitcoin Wizard. Please like this video and share it with your family and friends. Help me spread the orange gospel to the masses. Have a terrific day. Do not party too hard. Class dismissed. Once again, a special thanks to Horizon for sponsoring this video. Most people don't realize this, but on average, 60% of American homeowners' net worth is locked up in their primary residence, and with home prices more inflated than ever, Americans now sit on a combined $35 trillion in home equity. Now there's a way to unlock that trapped capital and put it to work in Bitcoin. Horizon helps homeowners unlock a portion of their home equity to buy Bitcoin. It is not a loan, so there are no new monthly payments. You just keep living in your home as usual. How sick is that, kids? Later, when you sell your home, refinance your home, or just choose to settle early, Horizon's provider takes an agreed share of your home's future value, and that is the trade. Unlock cash now to stack Bitcoin by selling a slice of your home's future value while you continue living in it. What makes Horizon stand out is that there are no term limits, and you keep 100% of the Bitcoin upside. The Bitcoin is fully yours to custody however you want, wherever you want, with no risk of forced liquidation. If you've been sitting on a pile of home equity and are eager to invest in Bitcoin, this may be the product for you. Visit joinhorizon.com to see if you qualify and get started. Their team of experts will work with you one-on-one from start to finish. Transform your dormant home equity into Bitcoin today with Horizon.